So today is a very special day in Transformers. This day in Transformers history, August 8th, 1986. 35 years ago was the debut of the 1986 Transformers the movie in theaters in North America. It was a big deal. In my opinion, it is the best piece of Transformer media for the longest time if you wanted to introduce your friends to what this craziness was that you were obsessed with. And it was probably, without a doubt, the most important piece of fiction in my life, leading to where I am today within the Transformer world. Every year, I always address an anniversary when it comes to Transformers the movie. It's kind of a regular thing here on the podcast. And I try to always tackle it differently every single time I talk about it. Last year, for the 34th anniversary, I took a page out of Ultra Primal where he posed the question, how different your life would have been if you never saw the 86 Transformers movie, because that would have been a very big difference in a lot of ways, because it was the very first piece of media of Transformers I ever saw. I was going on to 4 years old. I was like 3.5 at that time. And my next door neighbor, who was 2 years older than me, my friend Victor, he was going to go see a movie. And he was going to go see it with his mom, and he was going to be going to the theater in our area. We lived in a very ghetto, shoddy kind of area in the hood. And the one movie theater that we had wasn't exactly the best theater in the world, but movies tended to linger there a little longer, so you kind of got a chance to see movies there because it was cheaper to go to that theater, and they kind of held on to movies a little longer there as opposed to constantly rotating into popular movies. So I know for a fact that I did not see the 86 movie on its opening day. That was a Friday, and I know I went on a Saturday or a Sunday because I didn't have school that day. I know that for a fact. I'm pretty sure, if I had to take a guess, it probably was a Saturday when we went to see it. Usually Sundays were more lazy days for me and my family. We just kind of chilled, cleaned the house, maybe did groceries at best. But it was probably a Saturday, and I know for a fact that it wasn't, it was in fall because it was probably late August. So probably like 2 weeks after the movie came out, and it was probably a Saturday. So if I had to pinpoint it for Proto Man, like it was probably like much later than its debut. But I know I did see it in theaters. I went with my next door neighbor, and there was a good amount of people in the theater. I wouldn't say that it was packed, but there was definitely, I'd have to say, like, we weren't alone in that theater. I'd have to say there was probably like maybe 15 other people, maybe 20, which doesn't sound like a lot, which is true when you really think about how many people fit in a movie theater, between sometimes, depending on the size, between 80 and 100 people. It still was, I do remember there was other people there. It just wasn't something that was super packed. And it was a game changer because I saw that movie, and that movie enthralled me in more ways than one. It was so different than everything I was used to seeing in terms of cartoons up to that point. I had not seen anything of Transformers up to that point. My friend Victor, he had watched 1984 Transformers, 1985 Transformers. He had a connection with that brand. I didn't know anything. Up to that point in my life, I was playing Atari 2600, watching Looney Tunes cartoons, and, Knight Rider and wrestling. That's about it. That's like literally how I could sum up my life probably in the first years of my life. Like one of my very first memories ever was wrestling, but that's a whole other topic. But either way, the point is that, I saw this movie, and it was just something completely different than anything that I knew up to that point. And I fell in love with Transformers. And it was like, when I left that theater, I was like, I need to know more about this brand. I need to see more about what I just saw here. As far as I was concerned, like the leader of the Transformers was Rodimus Prime. He was the main character of the movie. He was the Luke Skywalker of the movie. He was the man. And I wanted more of this character, and I wanted more of this brand, and I wanted to see more of it. Caught some episodes of season 2 that were kind of ending its run back in 1986, going into season 3. So I also got enthralled by characters like Inferno. I remember the episode Decepticon King Arthur's Court, and liking that character and seeing his brief appearance there. Oh, a fire truck, and that's pretty cool, and just stuff like that, and then the domino effect that led of it afterwards. Unfortunately, because it was 1986, 1987, and Transformers were on their way out, a little brand called Ninja Turtles came around and kind of took over the world of every single child during that era. So between 1987 and about 1992, Ninja Turtles was just the most important thing to any child of my generation during that time. Then, of course, Power Rangers came out in 93, and then it became that. And then you had the arcade and comic book boom in 95. And then, of course, you have, then Pokemon came and changed everything too. But, that was the 90s. What a beautiful time to be alive. Love it. Love it. Either way, I love this movie. Every time I go back and I celebrate how great it is. And every time people used to meet me back in the day and they'd be like, oh, you like Transformers? What's so great about it? And this is like before the Michael Bay movies and stuff, which really made it mainstream. I would show them the 86 movie, because I felt if there was one piece of media that I could show to somebody, which, it wouldn't make me look like, oh my God, this guy likes watching cheesy cartoons. I was confident in the 86 movie because it had a hard edge to it. It had a hard edge to it. The animation was very good. It held up a lot, especially even for back then in the 90s when I was showing people it. It had that 80s hair metal, arena rock music that just is always very, flamboyant, and just it just gets out there. Much like if you saw a Rocky movie with its music, especially like when you're talking like Rocky 3 or Rocky 4, or when you're talking, let's say, a Karate Kid movie, or a Jean-Claude Van Damme 80s movie like Kickboxer or something. It gets to a point where Transformers just had that cultural iconic kick, Transformers the movie, that when I showed it to someone and said, this is what I'm obsessed with, they understood. And it wasn't something where they would just write it off, where I feel if I would have showed them maybe the first episode of G1, they would have been like, it's a cheesy old cartoon with, animation mistakes and weird stuff. So I stood by the 86 movie. And people who would watch the 86 movie who weren't familiar with the brand but wanted to know what's Proto Man into, what's Daniel into, it didn't make me look crazy. Even ex-girlfriends, they're like, hey, what's this Transformer thing you're into? I would show them the 86 movie. If they liked what they saw, then I would, open up the door to the other stuff. Oh, here's this, here's that, and everything. But the 86 movie really, it was a great gateway for many people. And for the longest time, it was probably the easiest accessible piece of Transformers media at the time. Keep in mind, movie rental stores were still a thing, VHS and DVD later on in the 2000s. But during the 1986 up until 1999, before the turn of the century, video stores were still predominant. And if you wanted to rent something of Transformers back then, anything, you'd be lucky if you found a Beast Wars VHS of the first 3 episodes that was maybe kicking around. You were lucky if you found maybe a couple of VHSs of the original FHS Marvel run of the G1 season 1 episodes. Those might have been kicking around. Those had like the comic book kind of covers that Marvel was doing at the time with Sunbow Entertainment. But at the end of the day, the 86 movie was almost guaranteed to be in any video rental store, because that was the most mass distributed thing of Transformers media at the time. You would always find those. Also, I find Return of Optimus Prime Part 1 and 2, that also seemed to be pretty common. But those 2 VHSs for sure. So if you were someone who was going to watch Transformers stuff and you went to the rental section to look at the kids section of Rent Transformers, you were probably going to find the 86 movie. So it was out there. It was some good stuff, and everyone loves it. And I mean, I could just go on and on and on. And I mean, so many times I've talked about this movie, so many times in different ways to tackle it. And I feel like I'm giving it a different kind of tackle this time too. Try to just, do a search for all the other times I talked about Transformers, the movie, under the Transformers Slag, emblem. And we have different ways that we discussed it. Even Jaws D once we talked about it together. Because it's a very important movie. It really is. And this is the 35th anniversary. Now we have the Shout Factory special steel case with lenticular lithograph. I have all of that was sent to me in the mail. And it's going to be another great experience watching this movie for the billionth time again, over and over. And hope to catch it in theaters when they do it again in theaters. I saw it once already before when Fathom Entertainment did it, but I'm going to do it again for sure. So just an awesome stuff. So really, there's not much more I could really say. My adventures with Transformers and how I got into it have been documented many times before. So hopefully maybe some new listeners might get something new out of this at least. But I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the 86 movie. I'd probably be doing video game stuff, Super Mario, Mega Man, maybe Dragon Ball. I don't know. That's for a whole other discussion, which was last year's video. Where would I be today without the 86 movie? So instead, what I want to know is, what was your experience with the 86 movie? When did you first encounter it? And what did you think of it? You're allowed to say if you didn't like it. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. I love it, but, there's some people that might not have liked it. But let me know your opinion. Did you like it? Did you like it, and when did you see it? And again, happy 35th anniversary to my favorite movie of all time, as cheesy as that might sound, Transformers the Movie. Or as the Japanese call it, Transforma the Movie Motion.